10 Deep Lessons from the book, The Winner Effect. Number 1. Read through these questions and answer honestly how much they apply to you. 1. Do you prioritize getting ahead more than having a comfortable life? 2. In work, does the thought of performing about the same as others bother you? 3. If you feel like you are wasting time, does this make you feel restless and uneasy? 4. Do you always try to be the best at what you do? 5. Would you choose to work with a difficult but talented coworker over a pleasant but less competent one? 6. Are you ambitious? 7. Does the thought of taking life as it comes make you uneasy? 8. Do you plan ahead in your career? 9. Would you strongly resent being described as lazy? 10. Do you feel at all driven? How many questions did you answer yes to? The higher the number, the greater your level of achievement motivation is likely to be. If you answered yes to many of these questions, you will recognize what I mean when I say that the motivation to achieve can feel almost like something physical impelling you. But does this feeling have any basis outside of a fertile imagination? The answer is yes, it does. Number 2. Think back to when you were at school. Read these questions and choose the answer under each question which best fits how you might have responded, to the best of your recollection. 1. When you find it hard to do arithmetic or mathematics, is it A. because you didn't study the subject hard enough, B. because the problems were too hard? 2. When you do well on a test, is it A. because you studied well for it, B. because the test was easy? 3. When you get a better result in a test than you expected, is it A. because you tried harder, B. because someone helped you? 4. If you solve a problem quickly, is it A. because you focused on it carefully, B. because it was an easy problem? 5. When you forget something that the teacher told you, is it A. because you didn't try hard enough to memorize it, B. because the teacher was bad at explaining it? 6. Suppose someone doesn't think you are very bright, then A. Can you make him change his mind if you try? B. Some people will think you're not bright no matter what you do. What did you, the child, answer? More of the A or more of the B alternatives? These questions are similar to those that Virginia Crandall and her colleagues from the Fels Research Institute in Ohio devised in 1965 to probe how children thought about their academic achievements, but it was not until 13 years later that the importance of these questions emerged. It is worth taking time to focus on the details of this research, as it gives a powerful insight into our own childhood's psychological makeup. Number 3. Earlier I asked the question, why do successful parents often hide the ladder? The first answer is that they attribute their success to something inside themselves, an entity, in other words. They contemplate their sparkling success in the world and can only assume that they have been born geniuses. In other words, by believing in genetic or God-given fatalism, they have no choice but to hide the ladder, because in their eyes there was no ladder helping them to their greatness. But there is a second reason why some parents hide the ladder, something to which fathers are more susceptible than mothers. This concerns the distorting effect that success can have on the ego, inflating the self-importance of the parent to the point that he cannot bear the thought that luck or brute effort might have played a part in his dizzying climb to success. Now, for such egos, the last thing they need to hear is that such success is potentially open to their offspring through such mundane recipes as hard work and looking for the lucky break. For an ego which has come to believe that their genius is an entity, to preserve that ego means denying the ladder of mundane effort and attributing success to genes or gods. Number 4. Testosterone is a hormone which boosts men's and women's sex drive and makes them more aggressive, and it does so by changing the chemistry of their brains, but remarkably, as the Cambridge scientists showed, it also seems to be linked to winning. Higher morning testosterone levels in the traders predicted higher profits on their day's trading. Testosterone appeared to increase their appetite for risk, and hence their likelihood of snatching a daring profit. Number 5. The biggest day-to-day stress for us humans is the threat to the self. For most celebrity actors, only as good their last movie, the self is under constant evaluation, repeated threat. The same is true for international scientists, only as good as their last paper. Their past achievements having set the bar at heights they have to exceed again and again. Or the salesperson, only as good as the last contract landed. After all, People do not compare the director's new movie, the scientist's new scientific paper, or the businessman's latest deal with his average achievement. They compare it with the most easily remembered previous movie, paper deal, which is usually the best one. And that is the proposed solution to the mystery of the Oscars. Winning an Oscar may offer a powerful and near everlasting safety signal for self, a sort of lifelong insurance policy that protects me against the terrible stress of other people's negative evaluations. Winning an Oscar may be one big, lifelong, all-clear, air raid siren, a permanent safety signal that your self is secure. That is perhaps why winning an Oscar makes you live so much longer. By protecting yourself, it defends your body. And that is a very impressive upside of winning. But does the struggle to protect this fragile and elusive self have a downside? Surely to have several billion people on the planet all struggling to win in order to immortalize their individual egos must have costs, as well as benefits. That leads to the final question of the book. Does winning have a downside? And to the final puzzle, the riddle of the flying CEOs. Number 6. If you get a letter saying you have won a lottery, this improbable, unexpected event will cause a surge in dopamine in your ventral striatum, which will make you feel very good indeed. If you bet on the favorite in a horse race and win, there will be a small surge of dopamine, but nothing to write home about. This is an expected reward. If, on the other hand, you find out that you have not won the lottery, then there will be a small drop in dopamine consistent with the mild, expected, but nevertheless disappointing outcome. And if you put a large bet on the favorite, confident that you will win, and unexpectedly the nag falls, you will experience a big and painful drop in dopamine in the ventral striatum. Dopamine is the juice of reward, which tells us what to learn and do more of and what to unlearn and do less of. In the competition for survival in the evolutionary struggle, those who paid particular attention to unexpected, as opposed to predictable, rewards were better placed to find new sources of food, water, shelter, and warmth, and so were more likely to survive, to pass on their genes. Equally advantageous was paying attention to unexpected disappointments, the empty water hole or the fruitless tree, as these would act as prompts to explore and avoid such life-threatening disappointments in future. This is why lottery operators throughout the world are so keen to publicize the enormous rewards of the million-to-one winners. Such rare, and therefore unpredicted, rewards cause enormous dopamine surges in the winners. But for the millions of lottery losers, because their loss was predicted, it did not result in a painful drop in dopamine. On the contrary, it may be that seeing the dopamine-triggered joy of the lucky winner on television may actually trigger a glimmer of vicarious pleasure in these millions, thus encouraging them to keep buying tickets week after week against all betting odds. Number 7. Gambling is pleasurable for many people because of the anticipation of winning as well as the occasional win. This feeling of pleasure depends on the brain's dopamine system, but in compulsive gamblers, the normal response to surprising wins and losses is disrupted, just as it was in Abler's women with restless legs. For most people, the sudden drop in dopamine that would be triggered by a big unexpected loss, say, the favorite horse falling at the last fence, would be experienced as emotionally painful and incline them to learn to avoid such situations in future. For compulsive gamblers, however, because of disruption to their dopamine reward system, they may not experience the same painful drop in dopamine in response to big, unexpected losses, and so do not learn to avoid them. So, the thrill that you feel when the fruit machine gushes out a clinking cascade of coins is caused by the dopamine surge in the ventral striatum of the brain. Number 8. Please read the following words. Think about each word and consider whether it applies to you or not. Strong, dreamy, nervous, brave, curious. If we had been scanning your brain as you did this, we would have seen that a particular part of it was very active. Now read each of these words again. Strong, dreamy, nervous, brave, curious. But this time ask yourself, does this word, or did it, if she is deceased, apply to my mother? A brain scan while you do that will show a neighboring but different area becoming active. Except, that is, if you are Chinese or East Asian. In that case, Thinking about your mother's personality will tend to activate the same parts of the brain as thinking about yourself. This is the mystery of the Chinese mother. What does it mean, and what can it tell us about the mystery of the flying CEOs? Number 9. The question, who wins, only makes sense if we accept that I does not really exist outside of a network of relationships with other people. Yet many of us still believe in I, and as we saw in the previous chapter, we seek power and status largely to find safety for that fragile I, but some of us do not. And Enron's only whistleblower was a woman. Is gender a factor here? There is a problem with such an explanation. Women on average do not have any lower need for power than men, and women respond to competition and power in very similar ways to men. But there are differences. It seems that men are more power aware. They pay attention to signs of power more than women do, and they remember more facts about powerful than less powerful people, while women do not show this selective memory. Finally, men sniff out the power relationships in a room quicker than women do. But still, women on average are motivated by power to the same degree as men, and so maybe gender has no relevance to what makes a winner. Number 10. The brain is the most complicated entity in the known universe and consists of many different parts working mostly unconsciously, but we hope, in a reasonably coordinated way. But there is too much going on for there to be guaranteed harmony, which is why we are bundles of often contradictory impulses. I really want to have this drink, but I know I shouldn't. Boy, I would like to tell him what an obnoxious creep he is, but it could rebound on me, and so on. But while we have lots of these contradictory impulses, most of us, most of the time, manage to behave reasonably consistently, and we demand of one another a veneer of consistency. The comforting notion that there is a sensible, square-jawed pilot, let's call it the ego, in each of our skulls, calmly navigating us through life, but the human beings surrounding us are far too complicated to let the pilot go about its business calmly and rationally. Different people ask sometimes incompatible things of us, partners, workmates, friends, bosses, or make what are often contradictory demands on us. Conflict is, in other words, almost inevitably created in our brains by the complexities of our relationships. And so there must be some way of managing these contradictory demands.